Hey guys. Tonight we're heading somewhere cold, really cold. Imagine the kind of chill that seeps through your bones. The kind that makes your breath freeze mid-air. You're standing on the rugged coastline of Scandinavia, where the sky feels like an endless sheet of ice and the sea growls against black rocks. This is Viking land, and tonight, you'll discover how these legendary warriors managed to sleep through the snow-choked winter nights. Spoiler alert: you probably wouldn't survive an hour. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're listening from, and what time it is right now. Maybe you're tucked under a blanket in Singapore, or wide awake in Oslo at 2 a.m. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first step into the frozen north, boots crunching over crusted snow. The air stings your cheeks, and every breath feels sharp, almost metallic. The horizon is a wash of pale gray, where land and sky blur into one. Out here, winter isn't a season, it's a ruler. And it demands obedience. Even the Vikings, with their muscles, their axes, and their bravado, had to bow before it. But they were stubborn, too. Instead of fleeing south like sensible people, they built lives right here, in the land of frost and midnight sun. You imagine their settlements, clusters of wooden longhouses huddled together, smoke curling from the rooftops like breath from a giant's mouth. Somewhere inside, firelight flickers, and the muffled laughter of men and women drifts through the night. The first thing you notice about Viking winters is their stillness. Snow dampens everything: footsteps, whispers, even thoughts. The world feels like it's holding its breath. And yet, beneath that hush, life goes on. You can almost hear it, the steady rhythm of work, of chopping wood, mending sails, feeding livestock, each task done with purpose. Because surviving the cold meant planning every moment around it. The Vikings didn't have central heating. Obviously, their idea of insulation was stacking sod and timber so thick that even daylight struggled to slip through the cracks. The longhouse became more than a home. It was a fortress against winter's cruelty. You picture yourself stepping inside one. Warmth slaps you in the face. Smoky and comforting, the air is thick with the scent of burning pine and boiled stew. Dozens of people share this space: warriors, farmers, children, even a few bleating goats in the corner. Privacy? Never heard of her. You rub your hands near the central hearth, a long trench of glowing embers running the length of the house. This fire is the heart of the Viking world. Everything, cooking, storytelling, sleeping, happens around it. The walls creak as the wind howls outside. But inside, it's almost peaceful. Almost. You glance around at the sleeping arrangements. No cozy mattresses or flannel sheets here. Just wooden platforms lined with straw, moss, and a blanket of rough wool. Yet, to the Vikings, this was comfort. After a day spent hauling nets from icy water or swinging a sword in the snow, lying down near the warmth of the fire probably felt like luxury. Somewhere near the entrance, a man snores loudly, the kind of snore that could wake Thor himself. You smile. Even centuries ago, someone was always the loud sleeper. You wonder how anyone managed rest with that racket. But then again, exhaustion has a way of making sleep come easy. Outside, the night deepens. The moonlight turns the snow to silver. And the silence feels ancient. You think about how strange it must have been, living months without sunlight. Days blending into endless night. No clocks, no calendars, just the slow passage of cold. For the Vikings, winter wasn't just endured, it was survived together. Families, animals, and warriors all shared breath and body heat beneath the same smoky roof. It's humbling, really. You sip from a horn of warm ale, imaginary, of course, and try to picture their resilience. Every night, they lay down knowing that outside, the world was frozen and merciless. Inside, they created their own small universe of fire and warmth, of whispered stories and dreams of spring. You shift, feeling the phantom weight of a fur cloak on your shoulders. Somewhere in that darkness, a child stirs, a dog growls softly, and the fire pops, sending a tiny storm of sparks upward. For a brief moment, it feels timeless, as if you've stepped back 1,000 years. Into a night that never really ended. But don't get too cozy yet. The longhouse may be warm now, but soon the fire will die down, and someone will have to tend the embers. That's a story for another section. For now, just listen to the wind outside, cold, endless, and whispering through the cracks like a reminder that even the fiercest warriors once dreamed beneath blankets of snow. You wake, or maybe you never really slept. The air inside the longhouse is thick and smoky, and your breath fogs faintly in the dim glow of dying embers. The Viking night is still deep. The fire in the center of the hall has burned low, and shadows twist like black serpents along the timber walls. Around you, the soft symphony of sleep, a man mumbling through a dream. The slow creak of wood settling, the rhythmic exhale of cattle at the far end. This is the longhouse of firelight, the heart of Viking survival. Every plank, every carved beam holds centuries of warmth and story. The structure itself is a marvel of pragmatism, 30, sometimes 50 meters long, made of wood and turf. Designed not for beauty but endurance. You crouch down and run a hand along the floorboards, uneven, scarred, and littered with straw. Beneath, there's no foundation, just frozen earth, yet it's home. Imagine this. Families, servants, warriors, even a few chickens all living, and yes, sleeping, under one roof. The fire in the central trench burns constantly. Because if it ever goes out completely, so might everyone else. Smoke drifts lazily toward a narrow hole in the roof. But not all of it escapes. Your eyes water. The smell of wood and sweat and wool clings to everything, including you. It's the price of warmth. You find yourself standing near the hearth, hands out, palms open. The fire crackles, sending a brief shower of sparks upward like miniature stars. You can almost feel the centuries fold back on themselves. There's something strangely intimate about the Viking longhouse. It isn't a palace, but it's alive, humming with human closeness. No walls divide people, only proximity and unspoken boundaries. The head of the household, maybe a seasoned warrior with a beard full of frost, sleeps near the center. Closest to the fire, his wife and children curl beside him, while servants and thralls lie farther out, their bodies forming a circle of warmth. Even in sleep, status determines how cold your toes get. And yet, despite the hierarchy, there's a sense of shared survival. When you're huddled shoulder to shoulder against an Arctic night, even a slave's warmth is welcome. You watch one of the older women, maybe she's a grandmother, turn over on her straw bed, pulling a rough woolen blanket tighter. Her face is creased but peaceful. She's seen 50 winters, maybe more, a feat in a land that doesn't forgive weakness. Next to her, a child murmurs something in his dreams, and she reaches out, half awake, resting a weathered hand on his hair. 1,000 years vanish in that gesture. You try lying down yourself. Just for a moment, the straw pricks your neck. The blanket smells like smoke and salt. Maybe even fish oil. The Vikings used it for everything. You turn on your side. Listening. The soundscape is strangely soothing. Wind outside. Fire popping. Animals shifting in their pens. It's their version of white noise, an ancient ASMR track of survival. But comfort was never guaranteed. The fire would dim in the dead of night, and someone, often a young man or a slave, would be tasked with feeding it. That role was vital. One mistake, one forgotten log, and frost could creep in like a silent thief. There are even tales, though historians still debate their accuracy, that a few families would bury glowing coals in ash at bedtime, like tiny treasures of heat, to reignite the fire at dawn. You imagine it, a warrior stumbling through the dark, clutching a torch, cursing softly as he steps on someone's foot. A quick apology, a low laugh. Life in the longhouse wasn't just cold, it was crowded. Privacy didn't exist, but neither did loneliness. And oh, the stories that must have filled these nights. Around the fire, before sleep, voices rose, low, rhythmic, full of color. Tales of gods and monsters, of Odin and Thor, of sea voyages that brushed the edge of the world. Maybe a warrior boasted of the raids he'd led, while children stared wide-eyed at the flames. The glow painted their faces gold, and somewhere in the rafters, smoke curled like the breath of forgotten gods. Even now, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the laughter, the quiet, the crackle. The Viking longhouse wasn't just shelter, it was their universe. Inside, life pulsed. Outside, death waited patiently in the cold. You can't help but think how modern comfort, your heated mattress, your quiet apartment, would feel absurdly fragile here. You'd trade 1,000-thread blanket for a sturdy fire and 50 bodies pressed close. Someone snores again. You grin. Some things never change, even after a millennium. The wind outside shifts, rattling the roof beams, and you swear you hear something, a faint hum, a ghost of a lullaby. Maybe the sea itself singing beyond the fjord. You pull the wool up to your chin and feel the glow of the hearth seep into your bones. The night stretches on, long and deep, but you're not afraid. The fire burns steady now, and warmth pools around you like a living thing. You're safe, for now. But tomorrow, when the frost bites harder and the food stores run thin, warmth will become a battle again. And soon, the Vikings will discover other ways to keep the cold away, ways that might surprise you. For now, close your eyes, breathe in the smoke and wool, and drift with the rhythm of the fire. Outside, the snow keeps falling. Inside, the longhouse dreams. The fire has burned low again, whispering its last few crackles as the longhouse settles into its slow, steady rhythm of sleep. You lie there for a moment, breathing in the smell of smoke, hay, and something else, something distinctly animal. You shift, open your eyes, and realize you're not alone. Well, you knew you weren't alone. There are 20 people snoring in here. But now you see them too. The animals. A pair of cows, thick-bodied and steaming slightly in the cold air, tucked into one end of the longhouse. A few sheep lie near the wall, curled like fluffy stones, and somewhere in the shadows a pig snorts in its sleep. And yes, you're sleeping with livestock. Welcome to Viking Winter Survival 101. It sounds ridiculous, maybe even a little unpleasant, and you're right. But for the Vikings, this wasn't strange at all. Sharing warmth with animals was simply what you did if you wanted to wake up alive. The longhouse wasn't just a human home. It was a communal ecosystem, a blend of warriors, wives, children, and livestock, all breathing and sweating together in one smoky, half-lit space. The logic was simple. Body heat is body heat. Every creature radiates warmth, and in a place where the night can freeze your breath mid-air, that warmth is worth more than gold. You pull your blanket tighter and realize that, in a way, the Vikings had invented an early version of central heating, except it moved and occasionally stepped on your foot. You watch a cow shift in her sleep, her massive flank pressing against a wooden post. A sheep bleats softly, the sound muffled by the thick straw beneath it. The air smells earthy, a mix of smoke and animal musk. Not pleasant, exactly, but deeply alive, and strangely, you begin to understand the comfort in it, the reassurance that you are not facing the winter alone. Historians still debate whether Vikings deliberately designed their longhouses to keep livestock inside or if it was a desperate adaptation in harsher climates. But archaeological evidence suggests this practice was common, especially in Iceland and Greenland. Stone partitions, wooden pens, and traces of manure, all signs that warmth came with a few four-legged roommates. You imagine the nightly routine. Someone, probably a child, herds the animals in at dusk, brushing snow from their backs before closing the heavy wooden door. The animals settle, their breath misting in the air, mingling with human chatter. As the fire dims, the longhouse becomes a single, breathing organism, humans, animals, fire, each part feeding the other's warmth. There's even a saying the Vikings might have used, something that would translate loosely to, better a cow's breath than a frost's kiss. And honestly, they weren't wrong. You glance around at your sleeping companions. A warrior stirs near the fire, muttering in his dreams. A child curls up next to her mother, feet tucked into the folds of a sheepskin. Someone coughs softly in the dark. The rhythm of life here is raw and unfiltered. There's no escaping it. No shutting the door on smells, sounds, or bodies. The longhouse doesn't care about your personal space. It cares that you survive the night. It's funny, though, when you think about it. People today spend thousands on electric blankets, heated floors, and double-pane windows. The Vikings just looked at a cow and said, "You'll do." The longer you stay in this place, the more your modern expectations melt away. The flicker of firelight, the thick animal presence, the low murmur of shared life, it becomes oddly comforting. You feel it seeping into you. A primitive calm. Maybe your ancestors would recognize this feeling, the quiet contentment of survival. of warmth found through togetherness. A few meters away, a man gets up, pulling on a heavy cloak. He moves slowly, stepping over legs and bodies, until he reaches the cows. He pats one of them gently, murmuring something in Old Norse. Maybe he's checking that they're still alive. Warmth, after all, works both ways. You keep the animals safe, and they keep you warm. Outside, the wind picks up again, scraping at the roof with icy fingers. The fire pops, flaring briefly, and you catch a glimpse of smoke swirling through the rafters. The longhouse groans, wood shifting as if stretching against the cold. Yet here, inside, it feels like another world, small, closed, and steady. You wonder how they endured this for months, the darkness, the confinement, the constant smell of hay and smoke. But then you realize, maybe they didn't see it as endurance at all. Maybe it was just life. They sang songs, told stories, carved little figures of gods in the wood. They made the darkness their companion, not their enemy. You roll onto your back, staring at the dim ceiling above, blackened with soot. The cow shifts again, and warm air brushes your cheek. Somewhere to your right, someone lets out a sleepy laugh. Half dreaming, the whole place hums like a living heartbeat. You can almost feel yourself drifting, lulled not by silence, but by the closeness of everything. It's not the warmth of fire that soothes you now. It's the warmth of connection, of shared existence under a single roof. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the Vikings survived not just the cold, but the loneliness of winter, by staying close enough to hear each other breathe. So, next time you complain about your roommate's snoring or your neighbor's dog barking, remember, 1,000 years ago, that might have been the only thing keeping you from freezing solid. Outside, the blizzard rages. Inside, the longhouse breathes on, a miracle of warmth in a world made of ice. The morning light barely touches the horizon, but you can't really call it morning. It's more of a gray suggestion of day. The sun hangs low, tired and dim, like even it doesn't want to crawl out of bed. You push yourself up from your straw bedding, your back stiff, your hair smelling faintly of smoke and sheep. Welcome to Viking winter, where the concept of fresh air is a distant summer dream. Around you, the longhouse begins to stir. Someone pokes at the hearth, coaxing a few stubborn embers back to life. The faint orange glow flickers across faces still half asleep. You can hear the shuffling of boots, the low voices of men talking about repairs, chores, survival. But what really draws your eye, what fascinates you, are the layers. Every Viking, from the smallest child to the most battle-worn warrior, is a walking pile of wool, leather, and fur. It's like a fashion show sponsored by Mother Nature and pure necessity. You watch as one woman wraps her child in a tunic, then a cloak, then another cloak, each layer heavier than the last. The fabric scratches, but at least it doesn't freeze. When you step outside, the cold hits like a slap, sharp, clean, and utterly unforgiving. The kind of cold that steals your breath and immediately regrets giving it back. You pull your borrowed cloak tighter. It's made of reindeer hide, thick and surprisingly soft, with a smell that tells you it's seen a few seasons of use. The Vikings understood that surviving winter wasn't about endurance, it was about insulation. Wool was their secret weapon. Spun from sheep and woven tightly. It could hold warmth even when wet, A Viking shirt might be rough to the touch, but it could save your life when the snow crept into your sleeves. And when wool wasn't enough, they turned to fur, bear, fox, wolf, even seal. Anything that could trap a bit of heat became part of the wardrobe. There's a certain art to how they layered everything. First, a linen shirt, yes, linen, the same stuff you might have on your summer bedspread, but finer, lighter, wicking away moisture. Then a thick wool tunic. Over that, a cloak of fur or animal skin, often clasped at one shoulder with a bronze pin. And if you were rich or lucky enough, you might even have boots lined with rabbit fur or wrapped in strips of felt. You watch a warrior tightening his boots, leather, soaked in oil to keep out the wet, and wrapping strips of wool around his calves. The motion is so practiced it's almost graceful. He looks up, grins at you, and says something you can't understand, probably a joke about how your teeth are chattering. You laugh anyway, because humor is its own kind of warmth. Even their helmets and gloves tell a story. Some were lined with fleece or bits of fur, others crudely stitched with scraps of hide. Fashion wasn't a concept here, survival was. You picture a Viking stylist saying, "Darling, the frostbite look is so last century." The smell of smoke and fur mixes in the air, and you realize how every fiber of their clothing came directly from the land. Nothing synthetic, nothing imported. Each piece was born from the same wilderness that tried to kill them, and that's oddly poetic. Inside again, a woman mends a sleeve by the firelight. Her needle is bone, her thread spun wool. She works quickly, hands steady despite the cold. There's no idle time here. Every stitch is a defense against winter. She finishes, holds the tunic up to the light, and smiles faintly. In this world, warmth is an achievement. You can't help but think about how spoiled modern people are. We have down jackets filled with engineered feathers, heated floors, even coffee makers that do the hard thinking for us. The Vikings had none of that, just layers, instinct, and a deep understanding of how to make the most out of what nature gave them. Still, you can imagine the downsides. Once dressed, it probably took half an hour to peel everything off. You picture a Viking warrior trying to take off 6 layers before bed, muttering curses as his cloak gets tangled with his tunic. Somewhere in the corner, someone laughs. Even back then, winter dressing was a sport. As night falls again, though really, it never quite stopped being night, the longhouse fills with the rustle of clothing, the soft thud of boots and belts being loosened. People fold their cloaks beside their beds, but never too far away. If the fire goes out in the middle of the night, they'll need those layers fast. You lie back down, feeling the weight of fur over you. It's heavy, but comforting, like being hugged by an ancient bear who disapproves of central heating. You pull the edge up over your nose and breathe in the faint scent of earth and pine. It's the smell of resilience, of a people who learned to turn nature itself into their armor. Outside, snowflakes drift past the smoke hole, glowing softly in the firelight. You wonder if the Vikings ever looked up at them the way you do now, not as a threat, but as something strangely beautiful. The flakes land on the roof, melt, and disappear, just like the years themselves. The longhouse creaks again, the fire sighs, and you close your eyes. You're wrapped in layers of history, fur, and faint animal warmth. You feel safe, at least until the embers fade again. Tomorrow, someone will have to stay awake to keep the fire burning. And that, as it turns out, was one of the hardest jobs of all. The night has teeth again. You can feel them even from where you lie, biting through the seams of the longhouse like invisible fangs of ice. The fire, that faithful red guardian, has burned down to a bed of sleepy embers. Shadows stretch long and heavy across the room, and every breath turns to mist. It's the kind of cold that slips beneath fur, beneath bone, and whispers, "Just a little longer, and I'll claim you too." And that's why there's always someone awake, the firekeeper. You hear him before you see him, the slow creak of footsteps on wood, the soft rustle of wool and leather. He moves through the dark like a ghost, careful not to wake anyone. The longhouse hums with the sound of deep sleep, low snores, the occasional cough, the sleepy grunt of a cow shifting in its pen. The firekeeper glides between them all, carrying a small wooden bucket filled with half-charred logs and a flat piece of iron for stirring. He kneels by the hearth and exhales, long and slow. The embers glow faintly, pulsing like the last heartbeat of a dying beast. With practiced hands, he arranges the wood, feeds the ashes, and breathes life back into the coals. For a moment, the fire flickers weakly, then flares, orange light spilling across the sleeping faces around him. You can finally see him clearly now, a young man, maybe 18, his hair tangled, his face smudged with soot. His job is thankless, lonely, and vital. If the fire dies, everyone in this hall could wake to frostbitten fingers, or not wake at all. Being a Viking firekeeper wasn't a glamorous title. No songs were sung about the boy who stayed awake while warriors dreamed of battle. But without him, none of those warriors would have lived long enough to sing anything. He stirs the coals again, muttering something under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a complaint. His voice is low, but you catch fragments. Odin, keep the flame, or, Freyr, send warmth. Even gods were invited to the fire in these frozen nights. You can't help but imagine what it must feel like to be the only one awake. Outside, the world is nothing but blackness and snow, a frozen silence so total that even the wind seems afraid to move. Inside, the air hums with human heat and soft, steady breaths. The firekeeper is the hinge between both worlds, one foot in the living warmth, one in the dark void beyond. Sometimes, if he's lucky, another night watcher joins him, maybe an old woman, too restless to sleep, or a hunter just returned from the woods. Together they share a sip of mead, a few quiet words, and maybe even a laugh about how ridiculous humans are, so fragile, yet so determined to keep the cold at bay with nothing but smoke and sparks. Historians still argue whether this nightly firekeeping was a formal duty or something families just took turns doing. But bones and ashes found in Viking hearths suggest the fires truly never went out. They smoldered continuously through winter, as precious as life itself. You shift closer to the warmth, feeling it return to your fingers. The firekeeper's movements are rhythmic, hypnotic. He could almost be dancing. The slow, deliberate choreography of survival. Each flick of his wrist sends shadows rippling up the walls, where carved dragon heads and runes catch the glow and seem to move. You could swear one of them blinks at you, amused. He sits back finally, Satisfied, the fire burns steady now, casting a golden glow that makes the longhouse seem smaller, cozier, safer. He stretches his arms, yawns, and looks around. You see the way his gaze softens as it drifts over the sleepers, the chieftain's family near the hearth, the servants at the edge, the animals tucked in their stalls. Maybe he feels pride, maybe loneliness, probably both. To keep himself awake, he hums quietly, a simple tune, one you imagine passed down from firekeeper to firekeeper for generations. It's not a song of triumph, but of endurance, the kind of melody that keeps you tethered to the living when the darkness outside whispers otherwise. At one point, he glances at the door. Frost has crawled halfway up the wooden frame, forming strange, delicate patterns, like the gods themselves have signed their names in ice. The boy stares for a moment, mesmerized, then he shakes his head, throws another log on the fire, and returns to his post. You think about how many nights like this there must have been, uncountable winters. Unrecorded faces, unknown names, each one kept alive by hands that refused to let the fire die. You imagine yourself as the firekeeper now, crouched before the flames, feeling your eyelids grow heavy. You'd trade everything for just a moment of rest. But you don't dare. The fire hums softly, its warmth curling around your face, your chest, your soul. You're its guardian, and it's yours. Eventually, morning, or what passes for it, creeps back in. A dull gray light seeps through the smoke hole, and people begin to stir. The firekeeper sighs, his task complete. He stretches, blinking through the haze. No one thanks him, they never do. But when someone holds their hands over the fire and smiles at the heat, maybe that's enough. He lies down at last, wrapping himself in a wool cloak that smells of ash and sweat. And within seconds, he's gone, asleep so deeply that not even Odin could wake him. And as you watch the fire flicker steady, you realize, sometimes the greatest heroes aren't the ones who swing the sword, but the ones who keep the fire burning long enough for others to dream. The longhouse breathes softly now. The night has thinned, though morning never truly arrives here, just a pale light seeping through the smoke hole. Like a promise it's too tired to keep. The fire hums low, its warmth pulsing gently, steady as a heartbeat. All around you, the Vikings sleep, or at least, most of them do. You lie there, half awake, half somewhere else. Maybe it's the rhythm of the fire. Or maybe it's the thick, smoky air. But your thoughts begin to drift. You feel the weight of the furs, the warmth of the hearth. And then, slowly, you're not entirely in your own mind anymore. You're dreaming. For the Vikings, dreams weren't just stray thoughts or nonsense to laugh off in the morning. They were messages, sometimes from the gods, sometimes from ancestors, and occasionally, from something far stranger. They believed sleep was a bridge between worlds. A quiet hour when your soul could wander places your body never could. You turn onto your side and glance at the sleeping faces around you. A woman murmurs softly, her lips moving as if in conversation with someone unseen. A warrior twitches, his hand tightening around the hilt of an imaginary sword. Somewhere, a child laughs in his sleep. The air feels thick with more than breath, it feels alive. Like the very dreams themselves are swirling here, unseen and listening. The Vikings didn't just dream, they interpreted. A dream of fire might mean good fortune or destruction, depending on who you asked. A dream of water could be travel, or death, or the gods whispering from the deep. And if you dreamed of a wolf, well, that was probably Odin, or war, or both. You imagine one of the elders, sitting by the morning fire, listening as the others recount their visions from the night before. A woman might say, "I dreamed I was flying above the fjord, and the sea burned beneath me." The old man would nod, stroke his beard, and declare, "The gods favor your family, prepare for change." Historians still debate whether these dream readings were religious, superstitious, or just a way to make sense of endless darkness. But for people who lived half their year in night, where the wind moaned like a ghost and the line between life and death blurred daily, dreams weren't optional, they were a second reality. You shift again, sinking deeper into your own half-dream. You see flickers. A hall of gold somewhere far above. A great tree that touches the stars. A one-eyed god watching with quiet curiosity. His ravens flutter above him, whispering secrets stolen from the world below. Maybe you're not just dreaming like a Viking. Maybe you're dreaming with them. Odin, the Allfather, was said to visit mortals in their sleep. To some, he brought wisdom. To others, warnings. A dream from Odin wasn't just a bedtime story, it could change a life. Or end one. Warriors sometimes claimed they saw Valkyries in their dreams. Gleaming women in silver armor, riding through the night sky. To dream of a Valkyrie meant one thing: battle was coming. And your fate was already sealed. The fire crackles, and your eyes flutter open. The longhouse is quiet, but something lingers, a faint hum in the air, as though echoes of ancient dreams still drift just above the straw. You glance at the sleeping warrior nearby, his brow furrowed, his lips moving. You wonder what he's seeing, maybe a feast in Valhalla, or a storm rolling across the North Sea. Maybe he's seeing tomorrow's battle, or the moment he won't survive it. You think of how fragile it must have felt, sleeping in a world where every dream might be a prophecy. There was no real line between the mystical and the mundane here. Every cough, every flicker of flame, every flickering image behind closed eyes might be a sign. And yet, in that uncertainty, there was comfort. If your fate was written in dreams, it meant the gods were watching. Even in the deepest dark, you weren't forgotten. You remember the boy who kept the fire last night. Maybe, as he finally fell asleep, he dreamed too, of light that never went out, of warmth that never faded. Maybe the gods smiled on him, if only for that. You close your eyes again, letting yourself drift. You can almost hear Odin's whisper, a low voice carried on the wind. Neither kind nor cruel, just curious. The air smells of smoke and pine, and you feel weightless, like your spirit has stepped outside for a walk through the snow. Somewhere far above, the northern lights ripple across the sky. The Vikings believed those colors, green, blue, violet, were the reflections of Valkyrie shields. The heavens themselves shimmered with divine movement, visible proof that their gods were never far away. Maybe, just maybe, those lights were the bridge between dreams and waking life, the path souls traveled in their sleep. A log shifts in the fire. A faint spark rises, twisting toward the roof and vanishing. You open your eyes again and smile. You don't need to believe in Odin or Valkyries to understand the beauty of that. the human need to find meaning. Even in dreams. The Vikings didn't dream to escape their world, they dreamed to understand it. To find warmth in the unknown. And as the fire hums softly, and the longhouse exhales another smoky sigh, you realize, maybe that's what we're all doing. Every night, searching, somewhere between the dark and the dawn, for a whisper that tells us we're not alone. The fire burns steadily again now, small, but bright. The longhouse has woken to another day of cold and silence. Though honestly, you're not sure if the days ever feel different here. The gray outside and the smoke inside blend together until you can't tell which world you belong to. You stretch, your joints cracking, the furs slipping off your shoulders. The air bites immediately, sharp, dry, and unapologetic. A few people are already up, tending to chores, feeding the animals. The rest still sleep, tangled in their wool blankets and dreams. And as you glance around, you notice something you hadn't fully understood before. No one sleeps just anywhere. The longhouse may look like a single shared room, one long, smoky rectangle of wood and straw, but every inch of it is quietly divided by invisible lines of status. Closest to the central hearth sleeps the chieftain, the master of this household. A broad-shouldered man with a beard full of frost and pride. His bedding is the thickest, made of reindeer hide and layered with clean straw. His wife and children lie beside him, wrapped tightly together in warmth and protection. The firelight flickers across their faces, softening them, making even the warrior look momentarily gentle. A little farther out, you see the older men, brothers, cousins, warriors sworn to the chieftain. Their beds are simpler, thinner, but still close enough to feel the fire's breath. Beyond them, the servants and thralls, the enslaved people, lie near the edges of the longhouse. Their bodies curled up against the walls where the cold seeps in hardest. Even in sleep, hierarchy rules. It's subtle, but you can feel it. Warmth is privilege. The center of the fire is wealth, power, and favor. The edge is obedience, humility, and frostbite. You shift your own bedding and realize you're somewhere in between, close enough to feel the heat, far enough to be reminded that it's borrowed. Still, no one complains. There's a strange, silent acceptance to it, as though everyone knows their place in this nightly orbit around the flame. You wonder if, in some way, the fire is like their sun, and each person's distance from it defines their place in this tiny universe. You watch a thrall, a young woman, her hair matted with ash, pull herself up from the edge. Her blanket stiff with frost. She stretches her hands toward the fire, not daring to move closer. The chieftain's wife notices, tosses her a log, and the girl smiles faintly before returning to her corner. A brief kindness in a world where kindness is rarely free. The Vikings believed in fate, in Wyrd. The unchangeable threads woven by unseen hands. Maybe that belief made this structure bearable. If your place by the fire was predetermined, then it wasn't cruelty, it was destiny. Still, you can't help but feel the quiet unfairness of it as you rub your own cold hands together. Historians still debate just how rigid Viking social life was. Were thralls treated brutally, or were they more like indentured workers, able to earn freedom? The truth likely changed from village to village, depending on the man who ruled the hearth. But one thing is clear: inside these walls, social order didn't sleep. It burned, steady as the flame itself. You lie back down for a moment, pretending to sleep, and listen. There's a soft rhythm, breathing, the crackle of the fire, the whisper of wool shifting. It almost sounds like harmony. Like every person here is one note in a living, breathing song. Maybe that's what survival demanded, not equality, but unity. Everyone doing their part, playing their role, holding the fragile balance between warmth and winter. It's hard not to see the poetry in it. The fire, the symbol of life, leadership, and divine favor, sits at the center, and everyone else revolves around it. Not out of choice, but out of need. It's as if the entire Viking world, from kings to slaves, was built on the same principle: stay close to the heat. And you live, drift too far, and the cold claims you. You think of your own world, heated homes, soft mattresses, personal space, and wonder how much we've really changed. Maybe the walls are bigger now, but the fire's still in the middle, and everyone's still trying to find their spot near it. The chieftain stirs. His wife murmurs something, a name, perhaps, and the child beside her burrows deeper under the furs. The thrall near the wall coughs, quietly, so as not to disturb them. Life continues, quiet, layered, deeply human. When you finally sit up, the firekeeper from the night before is awake again, stoking the flames. His hands are blackened, but steady. Around him, the others begin to rise, the hierarchy slowly coming to life with the day. The chieftain speaks first, giving orders in a voice that rumbles like distant thunder. The men respond. The thralls move quickly, quietly. You realize something then. In the Viking world, warmth wasn't just a comfort. It was a mirror of power. The closer you were to the fire, the more the world belonged to you. And yet, in the deep of night, when even the chieftain's breath fogged in the air and the fire sank low, all of them, lord, thrall, child, depended on the same glow, the same fragile flame. Maybe that's the real truth hiding under the furs and smoke, beneath all the layers of rank and rule. Every Viking heart burned the same way. The same fire that defined their status was also what united them. The longhouse creaks. Someone laughs. A cow lowly moos from the shadows. And for just a moment, you could almost believe that warmth has no rank. Night comes again, though. Truth be told, it never really left. The Viking winter doesn't swing between day and night. It just shuffles between shades of darkness. The longhouse settles into its familiar rhythm once more, the low crackle of fire, the rustle of wool, the slow breathing of dozens of bodies sharing warmth in the deep cold. You lie still, your eyes adjusting to the dim orange flicker of the hearth. And that's when you notice something, or rather, everything, the sounds. The Viking night is not silent. It's alive. At first, it's subtle, a few soft snores, a quiet cough, the gentle thud of someone turning over in their straw. But soon, your ears begin to tune in, layer by layer, to the symphony of the longhouse. There's the steady rhythm of the fire crackling in its trench, spitting now and then as sap bubbles from a log. There's the faint sigh of wind slipping through the roof beams, humming a cold lullaby. From somewhere deep in the shadows, a cow exhales, long and slow, followed by the creak of wooden stalls. It's oddly soothing, a harmony of survival. Outside, you can hear the greater song, the world of ice and darkness. The wind moves through the fjord like a beast, howling one moment, whispering the next. It tugs at the roof, searching for cracks, slips down the chimney hole to tease the embers. Snow drifts against the wooden walls, the sound like soft hands brushing fabric. And beyond that, faint, distant wolves. Their howls roll through the frozen valley, long and mournful, echoing off the cliffs like a chorus of ghosts. Somewhere near the edge of the forest, a fox answers, sharp and quick. You pull your fur cloak closer, and you understand why the Vikings filled their stories with spirits, monsters, and gods. When the night itself speaks like this, how could they not believe the world was alive? You listen harder. Beneath the wind, beneath the wolves, there's the deep, almost inaudible groan of ice shifting, rivers frozen solid cracking beneath pressure. The earth sighing under its own cold weight. The sound is ancient, like the planet dreaming. Inside the longhouse, someone murmurs in their sleep. A child giggles. Another voice, older, softer, hums a tune, maybe to chase away nightmares. The fire pops, sending a brief spark upward that vanishes into the dark rafters. You imagine the smoke curling toward the gods, carrying bits of warmth from this tiny wooden world. The Vikings didn't have the quiet we do. There were no walls of concrete, no hum of refrigerators or distant highways. Their nights were organic, filled with the noises of life, human, animal, elemental, the kind of sounds that reminded you were part of something vast. And that silence wasn't the same as peace. You turn onto your back, staring at the faint shimmer of light above, not stars, but the reflection of the fire dancing against the smoke. It moves like water, like breath. You begin to realize, this constant soundscape wasn't just background noise. It was comfort, the living proof that, in the middle of winter's death grip, life was still pulsing all around. You close your eyes and let yourself listen the way they must have. You pick out each sound, the rhythmic drip of melting ice from the roof, the rustle of straw as someone shifts in their sleep, the far-off cry of a raven, maybe Odin's bird, coming to steal secrets from the living. You smile at the thought, and immediately regret it when someone nearby lets out a thunderous snore that could probably scare the gods themselves. Even you can't help but laugh quietly into the furs. The sound feels good, warm. Laughter, even muffled, breaks the solemn air of survival. It's the same kind of humor that must have carried them through endless nights, laughing not because life was easy, but because it wasn't. The Vikings probably told jokes in this very dark. The sagas never mentioned them, but you know they must have. Maybe someone once said, if the gods wanted us to sleep quietly, they wouldn't have made Olaf's nose whistle like that, and everyone, for a brief moment, would have forgotten the cold. Historians still debate how these people endured the mental toll of such endless darkness. But the answer is right here. In this web of sound, in the rhythm of shared breath. The company of beasts, the lullaby of wind and fire. They didn't fight the noise, they embraced it. You realize that if you were dropped into this world without warning, no phone, no lights, no hum of modern life, you'd probably go mad from the silence of your own thoughts. But here, surrounded by life in all its imperfect noises, the Vikings found their peace. The longhouse sighs as the wind shifts again, pressing harder against its walls. You can almost imagine it as a living creature, breathing in, breathing out, creaking as it settles into the storm. The fire glows low now, painting everything in soft amber. The noises fade slightly, not gone, just gentler, like the night is tucking itself in two. You close your eyes and breathe in the rhythm of it all. Wind, fire, sleep, life. The sounds blur together until you can't tell one from the other. The wolves become the wind. The crackle of flame becomes the beat of a heart. Somewhere, far away, another Viking longhouse is doing the exact same thing, another fire crackling. Another night filled with the same sounds. The same quiet symphony of survival. And you realize something almost magical. Thousands of years later, if you listen hard enough, the world still sounds a little like this. The storm doesn't arrive with thunder or drama, it just becomes. One moment, the world outside the longhouse is the same quiet snowfall you've grown used to. The next, the wind rises like a beast that's suddenly remembered its hunger. It howls through the fjord, slamming into the walls with a force that makes the whole house shudder. Snow hisses through the cracks, and the door rattles against its hinges like it's begging to come inside. The Vikings don't panic. They've seen worse. Storms in the north aren't visitors, they're neighbors, loud, rude, and always uninvited. Still, there's a shift in the air. People move closer to the fire. The animals stir uneasily, hooves scraping the floor. Someone wedges a log against the door to keep it from bursting open. The wind screams again, this time high and sharp, like the cry of something alive. You pull your blanket tighter and glance around. The longhouse feels smaller now. The roof lower, the walls pressing in. Smoke gathers thickly under the rafters, curling like dark water. The fire, defiant as ever, flares and pops, its sparks leaping up as if to challenge the storm itself. This right here, is when survival becomes an act of community. The chieftain stands, his silhouette tall against the orange glow. He calls out a few short words, his voice steady but commanding. The meaning is clear even if the language isn't. Tighten the walls. Feed the fire. Keep each other close. And just like that, the room moves as one. Someone drags extra logs from the storage pile, stacking them by the hearth. Another checks the roof beams, ensuring the thatch won't lift. A woman gathers the youngest children and herds them to the center, wrapping them in cloaks until they look like bundles of wool. The animals are pulled in closer, their warm bodies forming a barrier against the cold. The longhouse becomes a single organism, living, breathing, adapting. You can feel the heat of so many bodies now. The air damp with breath and smoke. It smells like survival, sweat, wood, wool, and faintly, fear. The storm roars again, louder this time. You can hear the snow striking the roof in waves. The timbers groaning under the weight. Someone whispers a quick prayer to Thor, perhaps, asking him to keep the lightning away, or to Nord, god of the sea, though his reach doesn't always stop at the shore. The old woman who told stories last night sits near the fire. Her eyes half closed, she murmurs something low, rhythmic. It's not a story now, it's a charm. A song to hold the storm at bay. Winds may howl, but hearths will stand. Fire burns. By mortal hand. You repeat it silently, feeling the cadence steady your breath. The walls tremble again, once. twice, but hold. It's strange how quickly the line between fear and awe blurs here. The storm is terrifying, yes, but also magnificent. A reminder of how small you are, how fragile, and yet how astonishingly capable. The Vikings didn't conquer their world, they endured it. And that might be an even greater strength. Hours pass. Time loses meaning. The storm doesn't relent, it just changes rhythm. Roaring, pausing, whispering, then roaring again. The fire grows lower, then is fed again. Children sleep through it all, their faces lit by the warm shimmer of coals. At one point, a loud crack splits the air, not thunder, but the sound of a branch, or maybe a piece of the roof giving way. Instantly, half a dozen people move toward the sound, repairing, securing, without a word. It's almost graceful. This unspoken cooperation. You realize that in a Viking household, there's no room for idleness, only instinct. Learned from 1,000 nights like this. You catch the eye of the firekeeper, that same young man from earlier nights. His face shines with sweat, his hands blackened. He gives you a tired grin, as if to say, "Still breathing, aren't we?" You nod back. The wind howls again in reply. Historians still debate how much damage such storms could do. Some claim entire longhouses collapsed under snow, their roofs caving in like broken shields. Others argue the Viking design, low, curved, and rooted deep, was nearly indestructible. Whatever the truth, one thing's certain: these nights weren't for the faint of heart. And yet, somehow, there's peace in the chaos. The people move with calm precision. The fire burns steady. The song hums faintly on. Outside, nature screams. Inside, humanity whispers back, "Not tonight." Eventually, exhaustion replaces fear. People curl up again where they can. The children are quiet, the animals too. Even the storm seems to notice the silence and, slowly, grudgingly, begins to fade. The roar becomes a sigh. The sigh becomes a hush. The hush becomes sleep. When dawn, or something like it, finally comes, the air smells different, clean, cold, renewed. Someone unlatches the door and pushes it open. Snow pours in, glittering like spilled starlight. The world outside is white, perfect, untouched. The longhouse exhales a breath of warmth into it, a defiant plume of smoke and life. You step to the doorway and look out. The storm is gone, but its memory lingers in every drift, every icicle. The land is vast, endless, silent, and yet, behind you, the longhouse crackles with the sound of fire and laughter. They survived another night. You realize, that's the quiet miracle of the North. Not victory, not conquest, just endurance. The storm may rule the land, but the fire rules the heart. The storm has passed, but the cold that follows it feels almost crueler, not the raging, violent kind that screams at your door, but the quiet, waiting kind, the kind that seeps into your bones like a secret. Outside, the world is white and merciless. The snow stretches in every direction, reflecting what little daylight there is like an endless mirror. It looks peaceful until you breathe. The air bites your lungs, sharp as glass. Your eyelashes freeze together, and the inside of your nose burns. You can't even imagine surviving this without fire and fur. And yet, the Vikings did, every single winter. You watch them step out into the blinding light, Faces red, breath billowing, the chieftain gives a short command, and a few men begin clearing snow from the roof. Using shovels carved from bone and wood, others check the animals, scraping frost from their nostrils, rubbing them down with straw to keep them alive. Even in this cold, there's no rest. You can feel the chill creeping through your boots. It's not dramatic, not sudden, just steady, invasive, inevitable. It's the kind of cold that doesn't strike all at once, it negotiates. It whispers to your fingertips. You won't feel those soon. It crawls up your legs like an unwelcome vine. And still, the Vikings move calmly, methodically. Their layers of wool and fur turn them into walking fortresses, shaggy silhouettes against the white. You remember what you learned a few nights ago. Warmth here isn't luxury. It's strategy. Every stitch, every hide, every layer of grease rubbed onto their skin is a small defiance against death. A boy stumbles past you, carrying a bucket of frozen water. He grins, even as ice forms at the corner of his mouth. It's not so bad today. He might be saying. You blink in disbelief. The boy's idea of not so bad would probably qualify as a global emergency where you come from. You follow him back into the longhouse. And the difference is immediate. The world goes from biting to breathing. The smoke hits you first, thick and warm, then the fire, still burning, still alive, still defiant. You can't help but feel grateful for it, that tiny, stubborn sun in the center of everything. Inside, the people thaw. They rub their hands together, hang wet cloaks on wooden pegs, sit close to the hearth. You watch a man peel off his gloves and hold them near the flames. His knuckles are cracked and raw. Pale as bone, he winces, but doesn't pull away. There's no choice, the fire hurts. But the cold kills. You sink into your spot near the fire and close your eyes. The warmth feels almost too good, like stepping into a memory. You can feel it soaking into your skin, your muscles loosening, your heartbeat slowing. You understand now why the Vikings worshipped warmth, not as comfort, but as salvation. One of the women sits down beside you, a small bundle of fur in her hands. She unwraps it to reveal snow. But not just snow, packed ice. Glimmering faintly, she holds it over the fire, lets it melt into a wooden bowl, then sprinkles in herbs. You watch steam rise from it, carrying a scent both bitter and sweet. A remedy, maybe, for frostbite, or for the endless weariness of winter. She stirs it with a carved stick and offers a sip to the man with cracked hands. He nods, drinks, exhales softly. The smallest comforts become miracles. Historians still debate how the Vikings managed to survive such relentless cold. Some say it was the design of their homes, the turf walls, the insulation of animal skins. Others claim it was diet, high-fat meals and fermented drinks that kept their bodies burning like furnaces. But looking around now, you think the real secret might have been something simpler, each other. When the cold bites, they gather closer. When the fire fades, they share breath. No one survives this alone. You remember the feasts, the laughter, the stories. All of it was more than distraction, it was protection. Every song, every shared joke, every cup of ale passed hand to hand was a thread in the invisible fabric that held them together. And that warmth, the human kind, burned brighter than any flame. Still, The cold has its tricks. Later, as the night returns, the temperature drops again. You feel it creeping back under the door, slipping through the smallest cracks. The air becomes heavy, brittle. You can almost hear the frost forming on the beams above. The Vikings don't panic, they just adapt. Someone throws another log on the fire. A woman tosses a sheepskin over her child. The firekeeper stirs the coals and nods, satisfied. And yet, the cold keeps whispering. You can feel it against your cheeks. A reminder that no matter how thick the walls, winter always finds a way in. You tuck your hands under the fur, thinking of how easy warmth is now. A thermostat, a heater, a blanket plugged into the wall. Back then, every bit of heat had to be earned, chopped, carried, tended, protected. Every ember mattered. The fire pops loudly, sending sparks upward. For a moment, it feels like the flames are laughing at the cold, like they know something the frost never will. You smile at that thought. Because here's the truth. The cold may bite, but it never wins. Not as long as someone's still feeding the fire. Not as long as someone's still holding another close. The Vikings knew this. They didn't fight the cold, they endured it, respected it, lived beside it. They let it remind them what mattered: warmth, companionship, resilience. And so, as the night deepens again and the fire hums quietly, you pull your blanket tighter, feeling the weight of fur and history on your shoulders. Outside, the frost prowls. Inside, the fire answers, steady, alive, unafraid. And for one more night, you, like the Vikings, survived the cold that bites. The cold has eased its grip. At least for tonight. The fire burns low but steady, and the longhouse hums with the slow, quiet rhythm of rest. You can feel the calm settling over the room like a heavy blanket, the kind that carries not just warmth, but safety. For the Vikings, this wasn't just another night's sleep. It was strategy. To them, sleep and survival were inseparable. You shift slightly under your fur and realize how precious this stillness must have been, the rare moment when no one had to chop wood, mend nets, or watch for enemies in the dark. In winter, the body was a tool to be protected, not tested. Sleep wasn't laziness, it was preservation. The Vikings understood this instinctively. When the land offered nothing but ice and wind, energy became a kind of currency. Every motion, every breath, every heartbeat had to be saved for when it truly mattered. The long nights of winter weren't wasted, they were invested. You glance around the longhouse. Everyone is asleep now. Even the firekeeper dozes, his head nodding slowly as the coals glow red beneath him. The only sounds are the crackle of fire and the gentle breathing of the living. It's almost hypnotic, like the house itself is sleeping. But this peace didn't come easily. For Vikings, winter sleep wasn't always restful. It was a balance between exhaustion and vigilance. Outside, wolves prowled the frozen fields. Inside, hunger loomed, waiting for supplies to run low. Every family knew the danger of not making it through the long freeze. Sleep, therefore, had to serve a purpose: healing, storing strength, sharpening dreams. You think of their belief in fate, in threads spun by unseen gods. Maybe that's why they slept without fear. To them, death was never random, it was woven long before they were born. So they rested not to escape fate, but to meet it prepared. Still, There's something deeply human about this moment. The simple act of lying down and trusting that warmth and fire will last till dawn. That's all sleep really is. You think, an act of faith in tomorrow. A woman stirs near the hearth, pulling her child closer. Their breaths sync perfectly. Small clouds in the cold air. An old man turns on his side, mumbling softly, maybe speaking to the gods. Or to memories. Even the animals sleep, their hooves shifting gently against the straw. The longhouse feels less like a building and more like a living creature. Each person a heartbeat, each breath a whisper of endurance. Historians often romanticize Viking strength, their muscles, their weapons, their battles. But this quiet scene, is what true strength looks like. The ability to rest when the world outside tries to freeze you into stillness. The courage to close your eyes, knowing you might wake to hunger, or frost, or storm, and to do it anyway. You pull your own blanket tighter, trying to imagine their dreams. Maybe they dream of summer, the crack of oars on open water. The taste of salt on their lips, the sun high and forgiving. Or maybe they dream of home, green fields, laughter, the scent of wildflowers they haven't seen in months. Some might even dream of Valhalla, that eternal feast where warriors never tire, and the mead never runs dry. Whatever the dreams, they are sacred. For the Vikings, dreaming was a form of training. Resting wasn't just to restore the body, it was to strengthen the spirit. They believed a warrior's mind could travel in sleep, visiting places the body could not. The dream world wasn't fantasy, it was rehearsal. You can almost feel that now, a strange current in the air. As if their spirits really are wandering somewhere beyond this room. Maybe across frozen seas, maybe through the halls of the gods, maybe just through their own memories. You breathe slowly, in rhythm with the longhouse. In, out, in, out. The sound of fire becomes the sound of the sea. The creak of wood becomes the flap of sails. You can almost see it, a ship gliding through darkness. Guided by the same stars these sleeping people once watched in warmer times. They'll survive this winter because they know how to stop fighting it. They've learned to move with it, to eat when they can, sleep when they must, and dream when there's nothing left to do. Their resilience isn't noise or defiance, it's patience. The kind of patience that understands that rest is resistance. You think about how rarely modern life allows this. How sleep has become something stolen between alarms, screens, and deadlines. Here, it's the opposite. Sleep is sacred. It's survival. You open your eyes again and look at the fire. It's smaller now, a red glow pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The air smells of ash and pine resin. Somewhere in the distance, the wind moans softly, but it sounds more tired than angry now. You close your eyes again. For a moment, you feel as if you belong to this world, this rhythm, this simplicity, this acceptance of rest. You're not thinking of the next day or the next storm. You're simply here, breathing with them, trusting the warmth to last one more night. Outside, frost grows on the windows like flowers. Inside, the longhouse sleeps on, unbroken, unworried. And as the fire flickers one last time before settling into ember glow, you realize, survival isn't just about fighting the elements. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to lie still and let the world turn without you. So you do. You let yourself drift, The warmth wraps around you like fur. The sound of the hearth becomes the sound of a heartbeat, yours, theirs, the North's. You sleep. And in sleep, you survive. The fire hums low, steady as a pulse, while most of the longhouse sleeps in its cocoon of warmth. But not everyone sleeps. Someone must always stay awake. Someone must listen. That someone, tonight, is you. You sit by the hearth, wrapped in fur, watching the embers glow. The air is heavy with the quiet sounds of life, the slow breathing of men and women. The faint rustle of straw as someone turns in their sleep. The muted sigh of the wind beyond the walls. It's peaceful, but peace, in the North, never lasts long. Because the Viking night can be beautiful. But it can also be terrifying. The longhouse creaks softly, the sound like a whisper. The shadows shift. Somewhere in the dark corner near the animals, something moves. Maybe just a cow adjusting its weight. Or maybe not. You lean forward slightly, listening harder. This is what the night watch is for, not to chase away dreams, but to keep them from becoming too real. The firekeeper sleeps now, exhausted from nights before. His job was to feed the fire. Yours is to feed the calm. You poke the coals gently, watching the orange light bloom again. It feels fragile. This flame, like one breath too strong could snuff it out. You guard it anyway. The Vikings didn't fear the dark itself. They feared what might walk through it. Wolves, certainly. Bandits, sometimes. But more than that, things older. Things that had no names. They had words for spirits that roamed the frozen fields. For ancestors who wandered in search of warmth. For shadows that weren't quite shadows. To modern ears, those might sound like superstitions. But here, in the middle of a night so thick it swallows your breath, you understand them perfectly. It's not fear. Exactly. It's awareness, the instinct that whispers, you are small. And the world is very big. You listen. There, in the distance. A low, stretched howl. Wolves. Not close yet, but near enough to remind you they exist. The sound threads through the air like smoke, echoing across the frozen hills. You wonder if they're hungry, and then realize, of course they are. Everyone is. In winter. You shift, glancing toward the door. It's barred, solid wood braced with iron. Strong enough to keep out animals. Maybe not spirits. You smirk at the thought, a weak, tired smile. Because even fear becomes familiar after a while. The longhouse breathes around you. It's strange, sitting here alone while everyone else dreams. You can feel their warmth, their safety, their trust that you'll keep watch while they sleep. It's humbling, in a quiet way. Historians still debate whether Vikings took turns on night duty or if only certain people were chosen, those most alert, or least likely to panic. But archaeological remains of longhouses show signs of burnt wood and soot layers so thick that fires must have burned continuously. Someone was always awake. And now, that someone is you. The minutes blur into hours. You find your thoughts wandering to the fire, the wind, the shape of the rafters above. You start to see things in the smoke, faces. Maybe, or just tricks of light. You blink hard, and they vanish. Fatigue can be cruel. To stay awake, you hum softly. A tune you don't recognize but feels old. Maybe it's been here all along, lingering in the air, waiting for someone to give it voice. The melody is slow, circular, endless. It wraps around the room like a spell. The wolves howl again, this time, closer. The cows shuffle uneasily. You toss another log on the fire, and the flames leap high, scattering the shadows. The hall seems to grow taller, warmer, braver. You take a deep breath, and for the first time tonight, the cold doesn't scare you. You understand why the Vikings trusted fire so fiercely. It isn't just warmth, it's presence. A defiance against the unseen. Every flicker says, "We're still here." You whisper it under your breath. Still here. The hours crawl. You count them in the fire's language, from bright orange to soft red. From red to ember gray. Each phase a heartbeat of survival. The wind grows tired of its own noise. The wolves fade into silence. And then, from outside, something else, a faint, rhythmic crunching, footsteps. You freeze. It's too light for wolves. Too slow. Human? Impossible. Everyone's inside. You strain your ears. The sound comes again. Crunch. 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 Moving past the longhouse. Circling it once. Then stopping. You hold your breath. The fire flickers. And for an instant, a shadow crosses the smoke hole, tall. Lean. Impossible. Then gone. You blink again. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe the wind. You glance at the others, still asleep. Untouched by the unease creeping through you. You tell yourself not to wake them. Not yet. Instead, you whisper something, a prayer. Though you don't know to whom. Maybe to Odin, who walks disguised among men. Maybe to the spirits of this land, who respect courage above all. Keep the fire, keep the breath, keep the night. The flame steadies, as if it heard you. Outside, silence returns, thick and perfect. Whatever walked past is gone. If it ever was there. You exhale slowly. The adrenaline fades. You almost laugh. The cold plays tricks. Everyone knows that. But still, you throw one more log on the fire. Just in case. By the time the faintest light seeps through the roof, your body is stiff, your eyes dry. You've made it through the night. The longhouse begins to stir, unaware of what might have lingered beyond the walls. The firekeeper wakes and nods in greeting. Bleary-eyed. "Quiet night?" he might ask. You smile faintly, mostly. As he takes your place by the hearth, you lie down at last, pulling your fur close. Your body hums with exhaustion, but your heart is calm. You've seen the darkness, and it didn't win. Outside, the frost still glitters. Inside, the fire lives. You close your eyes and drift into sleep, the kind earned not by comfort, but by courage. And somewhere, far off in the snow, a wolf howls one last time. You wake before dawn, though in this northern world, dawn feels more like a rumor than a reality. The air is thin, silvery, and still. The fire has dimmed to a quiet bed of embers, glowing faintly like the heart of something ancient. The rest of the longhouse sleeps on, tangled in wool and dreams. You stretch, careful not to disturb anyone, and wander toward the door. The wooden latch creaks softly as you open it, and the cold rushes in like a wave. You brace for darkness, but instead, your breath catches. The sky is alive. Above you, ribbons of green and violet ripple across the heavens, moving like silk in water. The northern lights. It's so silent you can hear the faint crackle of ice shifting under the snow. The soft exhale of the sea beyond the fjord. The aurora swirls higher, shimmering, bending, changing shape faster than your mind can follow. It feels like the gods themselves are painting the night anew with every heartbeat. You stand there for a long time, staring. You've seen pictures of this before. Maybe even videos, but seeing it here, with frost biting your skin and the smell of smoke still clinging to your clothes, feels like being inside the pulse of the world. And you suddenly understand why the Vikings never thought this was just light. To them, the aurora wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was alive, divine. They called it Bifrost, the shimmering bridge that connected Earth to Asgard, home of the gods. Others believed it was the reflection of Valkyrie shields as they rode through the night sky, guiding fallen warriors to Valhalla. You watch the lights dance and think, if that's true, they must be riding tonight. Somewhere behind you, the longhouse stirs, the door creaks again, and the old storyteller, the one with the voice that could hush a storm, steps out beside you. Her fur cloak glints faintly in the aurora's glow. She doesn't speak at first. She just looks up, her face calm, almost reverent. After a long moment, she says quietly, "They're riding north tonight. Someone brave must have joined them." You glance at her. "The Valkyries?" She nods once. "Always the Valkyries." Her eyes never leave the sky. When they ride, no man sleeps. The dead listen. The way she says it makes you shiver. You look back up. The lights twist suddenly, folding in on themselves, then flare outward in a cascade of color so bright it almost hurts to watch. For a heartbeat, you swear you can see shapes, wings, maybe, or shields, shimmering in the glow. The woman smiles faintly, as if she's seen this before. "The gods remind us they're watching," she says, "even now." You realize how important that idea must have been in a world this harsh. To believe that someone, was looking down, not with cruelty, but with purpose. To feel that your struggles, your cold nights, your endless work, all mattered beyond the snow and stone. Historians still debate what the Vikings truly believed about the aurora. Some sagas describe it as firelight from the armor of heavenly maidens. Others say it was the souls of warriors marching in the afterlife. But standing here now, you can see why they needed no explanation beyond awe. The aurora pulses again, green turning to violet, violet to red. The light washes over your hands. And for a moment you almost feel it, warm, alive, electric. The old woman hums softly. An old song you don't recognize. The melody rises and falls in time with the sky. You imagine she's sung this tune every winter. Maybe since she was a child. It's not a prayer exactly, but it feels like one. You whisper, half to yourself, "It's beautiful." She nods. "It's a reminder." Of what? That no light ever dies. She says simply. Then she turns back toward the door, leaving you alone under the living sky. You stay there long after she's gone. Your fingers numb but your heart strangely full. The aurora continues to dance, silent but commanding, as if it's telling you a story older than memory. A story about fire that never goes out. About endurance. About beauty that refuses to vanish, even in the coldest dark. For a moment, you think of all those Viking warriors sleeping inside, dreaming of raids, of seas, of gods. Maybe this is what they dreamed of too. Maybe, in some deep part of them, They knew that no matter how long the winter lasted, light would always find its way back. Eventually, the colors begin to fade. The sky cools to its usual gray, the stars returning shyly to their places. You take one last breath of the icy air, then step back inside. The longhouse welcomes you like an embrace. The fire glows softly, the air thick with warmth and smoke. You settle near the hearth again, wrapping your cloak tighter. The image of the lights still flickers in your mind, green and gold and violet, burning against the black. You close your eyes and see them there still, dancing on the inside of your eyelids, whispering across your thoughts. And for the first time in many nights, the darkness doesn't feel heavy. It feels holy. Outside, the aurora fades. Inside, its memory glows on in the fire. And you sleep, knowing that somewhere above the clouds, the Valkyries are still riding. When you wake again, the aurora is gone, but its echo lingers in your thoughts like a half-remembered song. The air in the longhouse is warmer now, though not by much. The fire burns low, and the light from it turns the smoke into liquid amber. Around you, the others are stirring, stretching, yawning, pulling on boots and cloaks. The night may have been peaceful, but the dreams that filled it were anything but. You can see it in their faces. Some look calm, others look haunted. The Vikings believed dreams could carry omens, and after nights like this, full of flickering light and shifting skies, it's hard to tell where the divine ends and imagination begins. You sit up slowly, feeling the straw prick your back through the wool. Across from you, a young man stares into the fire. His expression distant. When he notices you watching, he grins faintly and says, "I dreamed of ships." His voice is soft, almost reverent. And there it is, the thing they all think about. The thing that fills their nights with both hope and dread. Raiding season. The sea. Every Viking winter ended the same way, with the slow stirring of restlessness. Months spent trapped by snow and ice had a way of feeding hunger. Not just for food but for movement, for risk, for something that felt alive. By the time spring thawed the fjords, they'd already dreamed of foreign shores 100 times over. You watch as the men talk quietly near the fire. Their voices low, almost secretive. They're not planning yet, not officially, but you can feel the pulse of it in the air. The word, summer, comes up often, spoken like a promise. One gestures with his hands, describing a coastline somewhere far to the west. Another laughs and says something about gold. It's strange. They spent months fighting for survival. And yet the first chance they get, they'll sail straight toward danger. But to the Vikings, danger wasn't something to avoid, it was proof of being alive. You glance toward the old storyteller. She's awake too, quietly spinning flax by the fire. When she catches you watching, she smiles knowingly. They always dream of the sea, she says, as if it's the most natural thing in the world, even when it tries to kill them. Her fingers twist the flax expertly, never pausing. In winter, they belong to the land, but once the water softens, they belong to the waves again. Her words hang in the smoky air, half prophecy, half resignation. You imagine it, the thaw, the sound of ice cracking and drifting out to sea, the first slap of waves against a longship's hull. You can almost smell the salt and hear the gulls crying overhead. You can see the warriors, The same men who now sit here in wool and fur, sharpening axes, polishing shields, laughing like boys before a race. And you understand something. All winter long, they've been storing not just food, but fury. The cold kept their bodies still, but their minds have been moving, sailing, fighting, conquering in dreams. Sleep for them isn't escape, it's rehearsal. The old woman hums softly, and her song seems to match the rhythm of those dreams, waves rising, falling, endless. They always return, she murmurs, but never the same. You wonder how many didn't return at all. How many winter fires were tended by women who waded through snow and silence for ships that never came home. You look at her face and realize she's probably waited too. Her eyes are calm, but her hands never stop moving. The men are louder now, joking, teasing, boasting. One insists he'll find a golden cross the size of his hand. Another swears he'll bring back silk from the east. Someone laughs and throws a bit of bread at him. It's easy to mistake this for arrogance. But it's not. It's longing, the human kind. The chieftain speaks finally, his voice cutting through the chatter like an oar through water. The hall quiets instantly. He doesn't speak of raids yet, only of readiness. Repairs, supplies, oaths. His tone is calm, practical, but underneath it you can hear the same fire that burns in the others. The kind that no winter can smother. Historians often call the Vikings restless, but that word feels too small. Watching them now, you realize this isn't restlessness, it's rhythm. The same rhythm as the tides, withdrawal and return. Stillness and storm. Winter was the breath in. Raiding was the exhale. You sip from a wooden cup of ale. The last of last night's brew. Now lukewarm and thick. It tastes of barley and smoke and something bittersweet. Maybe that's what this moment feels like. Too, the sweetness of life. Tempered by the knowledge that it's fleeting. Outside, the wind has softened. You step to the door again, pulling it open just enough to look out. The sky is pale, washed in faint colors. The snow glitters in the half-light. And somewhere beyond the fjord, you swear you can hear water moving, not much. Just a whisper beneath the ice. A promise. You stand there for a moment, your breath fogging in the air. Behind you, the longhouse buzzes with quiet energy, men speaking of distant lands. Women preparing tools, children chasing each other through the straw. Life returning. You think of their dreams, the ships, the sea, the gold, the songs. Maybe some of them dreamed of homecoming, too, of standing on the shore months from now. The air warm, the sky endless, the memory of this winter already fading. You step back inside, the warmth wrapping around you again. The fire pops, sending up a brief shower of sparks that look, for just a moment, like the aurora reborn. You smile. Dreams, raids, returns, it's all the same cycle. They sleep, they wake, they sail, they return, and even when they don't, the fire keeps burning. Because no matter where they go, or what they lose, it always comes back to this, the longhouse. The warmth, the stories, the light. And you realize, maybe that's why they could face the sea without fear. Because they already carried home with them, in their memory, in their fire, in their dreams. Outside, the ice groans softly, breaking somewhere beneath the fjord. The first sign that winter is loosening its hold. Inside, the Vikings smile in their sleep, dreaming of sails. It happens slowly, so slowly that at first, you think you're imagining it. The air feels different, softer. The kind of difference you don't notice until one morning you step outside and realize the world isn't trying to kill you anymore. The wind still bites, but it no longer tears. The snow still covers everything, but when you press your hand to it, it gives way with a quiet sigh instead of a crack. The long winter is breaking. You stand at the doorway of the longhouse, blinking against the pale light. The horizon glows faintly pink, a color you haven't seen in months. The Vikings stir behind you, murmuring in low voices as they, too, feel the change. A woman steps out, holding a bucket to catch dripping water from the roof. Drop, drop, drop. The sound of thaw, small, rhythmic, and utterly miraculous. The thaw and dawn have finally come. Inside, the fire burns lower now. Not from neglect but because it doesn't have to fight as hard anymore. The longhouse feels less like a fortress and more like a home again. Someone cracks the door open wider, letting in a breath of clean air. It smells faintly of earth, damp, rich, alive. You hadn't realized how much you missed that smell until now. The Vikings move with new energy. After months of slow, careful survival, they are suddenly restless again. You can feel it, a pulse in the air, a hum of purpose. Men carry buckets to fetch water. Women roll up bedding to be aired in the sun. Children chase each other through puddles, slipping, laughing, soaked and fearless. Even the animals seem livelier, their low grunts and snorts echoing against melting walls of snow. A man drags open a storage chest, checking what's left: dried fish, grain, a few smoked meats, enough to last until the first hunt, enough to say, "We made it." You smile. It's not victory in the grand sense, no battle won, no empire conquered, but in this land, survival is triumph. Historians write about Viking strength in raids and wars. But standing here, watching this slow rebirth, you realize their greatest strength was patience. They knew how to wait, how to endure, how to live through the kind of silence that would drive most people mad, and then, when the world softened again, how to rise without bitterness. The chieftain steps outside, his boots sinking into slush. He squints at the pale sky and mutters something that makes the others laugh. Probably a joke about the gods finally remembering them. Then, with a grin, he raises his arms wide, letting snowmelt drip onto his beard. You can't help but laugh too. The sound feels strange at first. Rusty, like an instrument that hasn't been played in months. But laughter spreads quickly here. After a winter of whispers, it's almost shocking how loud it can be. Inside, someone begins to scrape the soot off the walls, sweeping away months of smoke. The longhouse smells fresher by the minute. The fire is still burning, but less fiercely now, no longer a weapon, just a companion. You sit by it for a moment, watching the embers flicker. They seem gentler today, almost lazy. The same fire that once defied the frozen nights now hums in quiet satisfaction, as though it knows it can finally rest. Outside, the snow melts into small rivers, snaking down toward the fjord. The sound of dripping water fills the air like music, a slow percussion of life returning. The sunlight glints off the wet ground, turning puddles into shards of gold. You step outside again. The air bites your skin, but beneath it, there's something else: warmth, faint but real. You tilt your head back and let the light touch your face. It's thin, weak sunlight, but to you, it feels like a blessing. A few of the villagers gather around, faces lifted to the sky. For months, they've lived in darkness, the kind of dark that seeps into the soul. Now, even this faint light feels holy. Someone begins to sing, just a single note at first. Then another joins in, then more. The melody is simple, wordless, old, a song of thanks, maybe, or of release. The longhouse door opens again, and the old storyteller steps out. Her hair glows silver in the sunlight. She looks at you, at the others, and smiles. The world remembers us again, she says. You watch her lift her arms slightly, palms open to the sky, as if greeting an old friend. The Vikings believed the sun was not just a light, but a being, a goddess who traveled the sky in her chariot. Chased by wolves through endless night, they believed that when she returned each spring, it meant she had outrun them once more. You think about that now, about how fitting it is that survival here feels like divine defiance. The thaw continues through the day. Ice breaks free from the riverbanks with soft cracks and splashes. The air fills with the sound of running water. Birds returning, the creak of wood as ships are checked and repaired for the coming voyages. Everywhere you look, there's motion again, slow, hesitant, beautiful. The chieftain walks past you, nodding in approval at the longhouse roof now shedding its weight of snow. The gods have given us back the sea, he says with a grin. Soon we'll see what's waiting beyond it. But that's tomorrow's story. Tonight, as the sky fades from pale gold to violet, you sit by the fire one last time. The longhouse is alive with noise again, voices, laughter, the clatter of bowls, the gentle hum of music. The cold still lingers at the edges, but it no longer feels menacing. It feels like a memory. You close your eyes, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you can hear something you've forgotten the sound of, the drip of melting snow. Each drop, a tiny heartbeat, each one, proof that life goes on. And as the night settles, you realize something profound. The Vikings didn't just survive winter. They became it, endured it, carried it, then let it go when it was done. That's the secret, not conquest, not domination, just rhythm. Winter sleeps. The fire rests. And somewhere far away, the sea calls. Tomorrow, they'll answer. But tonight, they just breathe. The thaw deepens, and soon the snow is only a patchwork, thin veils hiding the brown earth beneath. The air smells of soil again, of life returning after long months of stillness. The Vikings move about the settlement with new energy, repairing what winter broke, laughing louder now, their faces no longer gray with cold. The sea, visible beyond the fjord, has begun to stir, ice drifting away in small, sparkling sheets. You can hear it, the sound of water breathing again. But inside the longhouse, time feels slower. The urgency of survival has passed, replaced by something gentler, reflection, memory. You sit near the hearth, watching the last of the fire burn low. The smoke drifts upward in soft curls, tracing invisible patterns against the dark rafters. The warmth is familiar now, almost tender. You can still hear faint laughter outside. But here, everything is quiet, like the house itself is sighing after a long, hard season. You look around and notice small signs of life reclaiming space. Bedding hung out to dry. Boots arranged neatly by the door. A pot of stew simmering lazily over the embers. More for comfort than hunger. For the first time, the air inside doesn't smell like smoke and fear. It smells like home. It's strange, isn't it? You think of the months that came before, of snow that never stopped, of nights that stretched on forever, of silence so deep it made the heart ache. And yet, in all that darkness, there was warmth, laughter, light. These people didn't merely endure, they lived. You remember the children giggling through their fear as stories were told. The firekeeper whispering to the coals in the dead of night. The chieftain raising his horn during the feast. The glow of the northern lights flickering through the roof. And you realize, this place has changed you, too. Historians can measure their tools, their ships, their weapons, but not this. Not the quiet, ordinary heroism of simply keeping the fire alive. The Vikings will soon sail again. They'll leave this hall for the open sea, chasing glory, trade, and tales that will outlive them. But here, in this moment, before the noise returns, you feel something sacred, the hush between seasons, the breath between struggle and renewal. Outside, the first true sunrise climbs over the horizon. It spills through the doorway, spilling gold over the worn floorboards. It touches the sleeping child near the hearth, the fur cloak on the wall, the carved dragon beam overhead. For the first time in months, the light is strong enough to make shadows. You close your eyes. The warmth against your skin feels softer now, no longer the desperate firelight of survival, but the gentle kiss of spring. The longhouse creaks, familiar and alive. A dog barks outside. Someone laughs. A bucket tips over in the mud. Life, unremarkable and beautiful, resumes its rhythm. And for a while, you just sit there, breathing, letting the sound of it all wash over you. The fire, the voices, the distant sea, they blend together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. You realize that this is how the Vikings must have felt at the end of every winter, not triumphant, not relieved, but quietly grateful. They knew the cold would return one day. It always does, but for now, the warmth is enough. You stand, take one last look around the hall, and step outside. The snow crunches softly beneath your boots. The air is cold, yes, but it's the kind of cold that wakes you, not wounds you. The sky is endless blue. The fjord gleams like glass. Somewhere behind you, the door closes gently. The longhouse fades into the hum of the landscape, a memory, a heartbeat, a story that never really ends. You smile. The Vikings are gone now, but their fire still burns, quietly, invisibly, every time someone chooses to endure. The wind stirs, carrying the faint smell of smoke and sea. You breathe it in. The world feels vast again, but not empty. It's peaceful now, so peaceful. You let the sound of the waves fade into a whisper. The light softens, the edges blur, and the world drifts slowly toward silence. The cold no longer bites. The night no longer fears. The story, for now, is complete. End of script. Sweet dreams.